Reporting from Arkham Asylum, this is Gotham Rose. In this video we take a look at the comic book storyline Batman, Lovers and Madmen. Lovers and Madmen is a 6-issue story arc, which was originally published in a fairly short-lived title Batman Confidential in 2007. It was written by Michael Green and penciled by Dennis Cowan. The story is an alternate version of the Joker's origin and his first encounter with Batman. It takes place when Bruce has been Batman for roughly a year, and his crusade against crime has finally started to show an effect on the city. Batman has gotten a pretty good bead on how the criminal element works, and has managed to dismantle all the major criminal organizations. Thus, his mission has been a success, and the people of Gotham no longer need to feel fear when walking the streets. Meanwhile, a sociopathic gun-for-hire named Jack is coming down with the blues due to his sudden inability to enjoy performing hits, heists, and other acts of crime. He's actually the best in the field, and he's always felt great joy while doing his job. But now that joy is gone, just like everything else in life is to him, his former passion has gotten boring and uninteresting. Killing, maiming, and stealing are the only things he's ever been good at and found any pleasure in. But now, with that gone, what reason is there for him to live? Jack plans to take his own life, but inspired by a barmaid, he attempts one last heist. At first, he's disappointed, as he still gets no kick out of it, and he even purposely trips the alarm to spice things up. And that's when Batman arrives on the scene. As the Dark Knight pounds Jack's accomplices into the ground, the psychotic killer feels a spark light up in his soul. He instantly becomes enamored with the crazy man dressed as a bat and rediscovers the ability to experience excitement and glee. Jack manages to flee the scene and declares that he must meet this Batman again. In the following weeks, Jack leads a brutal crime wave in Gotham with the purpose of attracting the attention of Batman. Meanwhile, the Dark Knight is baffled by this new irrational criminal and is unable to defeat him. After one particularly fierce encounter, which leaves Bruce's girlfriend in a critical condition and Jack's mouth sliced up into a grin by Batman's batarang, Bruce finally decides it's enough. He goes against his oath to never kill a human being and hires a crew of gangsters to take care of Jack. They kidnap Jack while he's on the operating table to get his mouth fixed and brings him to a chemical factory. There they brutally torture him, but to no avail, as he's completely unfazed. Before the gangsters can finish the job and kill Jack, he manages to get free and engages them in a fight. In the heat of the battle, a bullet fired by one of the thugs hits a tank above them, which unleashes a flood of chemicals, drenching Jack. Incredibly enough, he actually survives and is flushed up in a river outside the factory. However, the chemicals severely deformed his appearance by bleaching his skin, turning his hair green and his lips ruby red. The waste he bathed in was ironically antipsychotics, which affected his mind as well. Jack was already completely off the deep end, but the chemicals opened up the door to a whole new level of insanity. Although Jack doesn't see it that way, he feels that he's finally opened up his eyes to the wonders of the world for the first time in his life. And he wants to spread his joy to the rest of Gotham. Called the Joker by the press, Jack begins a reign of terror unlike anything the city has ever seen, and it's up to Batman to stop what he inadvertently created. You don't see Joker origin stories too often, as a lot of people feels that the character works better if his past and true identity is shrouded in mystery. This makes him scarier, less human, and more of a force of nature. An origin story can also be too tame and fail to believably convey Joker's trip into becoming the craziest villain in comics. Does Lovers and Madmen do that? No, but it's because it kind of cheats. Jack is already insane and essentially a Joker light when the story starts, and we never get to see why that is. So basically, even though we get to see his transformation into the Joker, he still remains a mystery and a larger-than-life figure. We sort of get to have the cake and eat it too. A real challenge would be if someone attempted to write a prequel to this story and explain how Jack became so disturbed. But that's not the point here, as writer Michael Green makes it pretty clear that Joker isn't human. Figuratively speaking, of course. He's a monster, something Batman has never fought before, and that's the whole point of the story. This isn't Joker's story, it's Batman's. He was prepared to fight humans committing evil deeds, but he wasn't prepared to fight evil itself. Lovers and Madmen is about a turning point in Batman's career when he loses his innocence. Up until this stage of his crusade, Bruce thought he had criminals and evil all figured out. He had grown safe and sure in his own abilities and in the capabilities of Gotham's underworld. But all of that was turned on its head with the arrival of the Joker, which forced Batman to question everything he had learned and everything he believed in. It's a very young and naive Bruce Wayne we see in this story, who's still experimenting with his gadgets and thinks that he can juggle a love life and perform his crusade at the same time. There's a very important subplot about Bruce dating a woman named Lorna Shore, who brings some happiness into his life, another thing Bruce was unprepared for. Alfred has a great part in this story, as both Bruce's voice of reason and as his technician. In the story, we see the creation of the Batcave's Batcomputer, and it's Alfred who builds it. It's a highly advanced piece of hardware that doesn't exist anywhere else in the world, and Alfred jokingly laments how he would have won a Nobel Prize for it if only anyone was allowed to know of its existence. Bruce clearly would have been nothing without Alfred, both as a crime fighter and as a man. It's a shame this story doesn't treat Gordon with the same level of respect, as here he's just kind of useless and serves no purpose. We also get two fun cameos by two other pre-villain bat rogues. The barmaid who convinces Jack to commit one last heist early in the story is actually Harleen Quinzel, who years later will become Harley Quinn. At the time of their meeting in the bar, neither of them had any clue of their shared destiny. The second cameo is by Dr. Jonathan Crane, the future Scarecrow, who's planning to reopen Arkham Asylum and make it operational to house this new breed of villain, like the Joker. How ironic that he himself would end up as a patient there years later. As a Joker origin story, Lovers and Madmen is pretty good, but I still prefer The Killing Joke. As a Batman story, it's also pretty good, but I have one big issue with it. After Bruce realizes that it was wrong to break his oath by hiring those gangsters, he goes to an extreme level of absurdity to uphold his no-kill rule. Kevin Smith basically did the exact same thing in Batman Cacophony, also with the Joker to boot. And if you read that, you know what I'm talking about. What Batman does in both of these stories is incredibly stupid, and not heroic or noble at all in my opinion, but that's how some people prefer their Batman, which I can't understand. Finally, the artwork. I kind of like it, but at the same time not. I think Dennis Cowan has gone too abstract and weird with his art style, which is a shame because I absolutely love his older work, such as the classic Batman story Blind Justice from 1989, and his run on the awesome The Question series from 1986 to 1990. In those comics, his artwork combines stylishness with realism, but here his figures look strange. Sometimes outright ugly and anatomically incorrect. But I must assume that that's what he was going for, as there's no way such a talented artist would slip like that. I suppose the weird artwork kind of fits this crazy story in a way. So, there you have it. That's Batman, Lovers and Madmen, a unique version of the Joker's origin. Remember, Arkham Asylum awaits you in the next video.